So let's talk now about the new developments in neuroscience. Until perhaps 1995, we really, in many ways, thought that, well, that was kind of what we think of what goes on in the brain, but a lot of developments started percolating up. In fact, after I got my license, I took a CSPP course for a year in neuropsychology back in the 80s by Michael Shore. And I remember Michael said, you know, we in neuroscience or neuropsychology believe that you know, you're born with as many neurons as you ever have, and basically you're just going to lose 10,000 a day. If you want to accelerate that loss, drink a beer, there's 10,000 neurons. You want to kill more, go for 2 beers. And the connections were less understood. And that was the 80s. Well, boom, the 90s, the decade of the brain, and certainly the 2000s, exploded in terms of how we understand what goes on in the brain and the new potentials for us to understand what happens in therapy. So let's go over some of those developments. The amygdala, certainly critical to what we deal with, not only with respect to stress and anxiety, but also depression. Joseph Ledoux at New York University has done some incredible work on the different routes to the amygdala, and we'll talk about those. Neuroplasticity is kind of the crux of what we're talking about, how the brain changes over time, how to restructure, how to work with Donald Hebb's earlier concept of cells that fire together, wire together. Mirror neurons, kind of big in the scene right now with regard to empathy. So we'll be touching on those. We won't talk so much about spindle cells, but let me briefly say what they are. These are very interesting cells found in various places in the brain, specifically the anterior cingulate, the insula, and orbital frontal area that process emotion. And they're structured a little bit differently in that they're much larger with long axons connecting up various regions. So in some ways, some researchers are saying that spindle cells are really operative when you get a snap emotional judgment. They integrate other areas. They give you a sense of intuition. You know, when you get a gut reaction quickly about a certain situation, and in a sense, those spindle cells are activated. Though we're not going to talk about it, I feel that nutritional neuroscience is incredibly important. Why? Because all these neurotransmitters, neuromodulators, are made by the body via the amino acid precursors that we take in through our diet. So every neurotransmitter has an amino acid precursor. So if you're running on empty, of course you're going to be depressed and anxious. So I don't think in terms of somebody's diet as some symptom. Rather, if they're running on empty, I say, you know, there's really not much we're going to be able to do until you start eating. Well, I can't, I don't have the hunger, I'm not hungry, and I'm going to wait until I feel like I have the hunger for it. And I said, well, you know, when you take a pill in the morning, like an antibiotic, do you hunger for that antibiotic? You think of it as medicine. Well, food is medicine, and in fact, food is the building blocks to this whole cornucopia of neurotransmission.